everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the Winter Split SmaxTalk Podcast. We are finally here with the first episode. I am your host, Smax, joined by Slothking, your co-host, my co-host, and everyone's favorite sloth-related person. And we have our special guest here, Goose, aka Akuma Joker, aka Worthless E-Boy, aka Bean, aka a lot of
It
things.
goes on and on.
Got a lot of pseudonyms here.
Yeah, but how are you guys doing?
Good. It's good to be back, starting the next winter split now. And if no one remembers me, I was from Plays Podcast, co-host to Plays. Unfortunately, he has been tied up lately and cannot do the podcast, but we're gonna still bring you the content that you love.
Yes.
I'm alive and well. As Smax says, I go by a lot of names, but currently I'm the coach for Akuma Scythes and Akuma Katanas, as well as another Akuma team that isn't in PRL. So it's a busy schedule for me. It's very, very loaded, but looking forward to finally getting to be a guest on this show.
Yeah, we had you on for the live episode of our podcast at the end of the fall split, and that was a great time. So I'm really glad that you're
That's
returning here.
content. That's
Yes,
content.
yes, and the All-Star game too. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, if you guys were paying attention, especially near the end of the fall split, you probably recognize all of us. At least our voices here, as Goose is a still image. But that's all right. We're still glad you are here with us, and we're here to just go over week 2 and all of the games that we watched, because there were a lot of them. If you guys don't know, there are 32 teams in Academy League, so we do end up having a lot to talk about. We had a 6-hour podcast almost last split, but this time we're gonna put a leash on things. And obviously, if you're hearing this right now, you know how long the video is going to be. But ideally, we keep it a lot shorter than that. But anyway, we're gonna get right into things with the very first game that we watched this last week, which is the Fire Division Game 1, which was Akuma Scythes versus Lost Collective Gladiators. And Goose, being the coach of this team, has a special connection with this game, and had to watch this team take their first L of the split.
Yeah. So basically, my mentality for PRL this season, because last season on TFT, in case you guys didn't know, I was the coach manager for TFT, Tempest, and last season we kind of just went balls to the walls trying to win every single game and never really grew, and it seriously affected us come semifinals against Akuma Blades. So this season I'm kind of using the first round robin, to experiment and to try and limit test, I guess, comps that we've practiced on, like, quote unquote stage games, which is why we took a bit of a hit this week. We're going back to, our regular style next week, aka yesterday.
Yeah. For a disclaimer here, we are recording this on Friday in week 3. So we already saw the week 3 games for Akuma. Spoilers, they did bounce back and get another 2-0 week. So they took what happened here in game 2 and to heart pretty well and bounced back. So we already know that this team is capable of getting back up there in the standings. They are now tied for 3rd. But as of when this happened, they had dropped down to be tied for 4th place at 2-2. And yeah, we got to watch the first game of that on the stream, and we got to see Lost Collective have a really, really nice showing here. We were a bit uneasy about where this team would land, but after watching what they've done here against Akuma, and then also the game yesterday against Wolfpack, this definitely looks like a contender here, and they are now tied in 1st as well.
Yeah, showing that they can bring it back in the mid game. I mean, that takes a lot of skill to kind of fix your mistakes and come into your next fights and find the importance of every objective.
I was personally very impressed with the jungler from Lost Collective, Griffin.
Yeah.
He's young. He's a young player, and I've been talking to him more and more, like, personally, just to get to know him. Just because he's very smart about the game, and I've learned a lot actually from speaking to him. He was very good. And the mid laner Echidna is also very strong. Big fan of watching those two play, and I'm happy they're in our division because it'll push Malstixi and Akata to grow.
Yeah, speaking of Okada, we did see him take the Conqueror Rumble, which
Not a
ended up
fan.
not being amazing. Uh, there are probably about 3 runes that are better on Rumble than that one. So I don't know. He maybe saw something in that we didn't, but definitely less impactful than something like a Conqueror or Electrocute could have been in terms of damage, and then the Predator obviously for the roaming. But yeah, I'm really excited for both of these two teams as they are fighting for those playoff spots. And as we go down the list here for the games, we're going to be seeing a lot of these teams that are really capable of getting up in the standings and putting on a really nice showing. But unfortunately, this next game, Game 2, does not feature any of those teams. we've got Shenzi's Frenzies versus Famous Gaming Prodigy, and this was a little bit of a mess of a game, as was kind of a trend here for week 2 of the Fire Division, honestly.
Yeah. So my personal analysis of this game is I can't remember how to say his name. Insekiro. We usually call him Insecuro, but he's
Yeah.
actually not that bad. He's not that bad of a guy, all things considered. But so I won't make fun of him. But maybe I will because he did play Omnistone Nar into the Ornn, which apparently Lee Sun Ho, the top laner for Shenzi's Frenzies, is basically just an Ornn one trick at this point. It's
It
the
seemed
only
that
thing
way.
I've seen him play.
Yeah, he played
And
Mordekaiser. He played Mordekaiser yesterday, and it did not go well.
This famous draft is egregious and probably one of the worst drafts you'll see in this tournament thus far. But
Yeah.
they at least turned it around later on in the day.
Right. I wanna bring especially light to that draft because they happened to make a draft where Nami was a really good pick into it. And when the enemy support can be freed up to pick an enchanter, not really something you want to have happen in your draft. But the Nami did look quite nice. And yeah, Shenzi's Frenzies rolled over that game. Special shout out to Desq on the Victor, absolutely popping off.
Yeah, he made Victor look quite powerful, and especially into a pretty awful matchup. The Echo does kind of have his way early game with the Victor, but
Yeah.
Victor kind of just outscales. And you saw that this game in the mid portion of the game, the mid game portion. Vincent and Desq kind of just had their way with Famous, and the game was pretty much over at 10 minutes.
Yeah, I definitely would have liked to see Immortal Suki on this Xin Zhao do a lot more than he ended up doing. But obviously, it is against the Olaf, so there's a bit of a caveat there. You can't do too much when you are up against the strongest early game champion in the game. But to the draft's credit there, you just can't pick Xin Zhao into Olaf if you're having this problem. So, yeah, that's really all there is to that game
Olaf
there.
is just super strong in the meta right now.
Yeah,
he
he's
should
pretty
be banned
nuts.
a lot. He shouldn't be popping out in games.
Yeah, it is very true. But yeah, we mentioned how these are not two of the teams that are vying for those playoff spots, and it is because they just keep taking games off of each other. It's really just that the top half of this division is looking like contenders, and everyone else is pretty far underneath. As well, we're kind of cheating as we did see the results of yesterday, but there are no teams that are 3-3. There are 2 teams that are 5-1, 2 teams that are 4-2, and then there's a giant gap, and then the next closest team is a 2-4 team, which is 3 teams tied, I believe. RMU, Shenzi's Frenzies, and who is the other one? Famous Prodigy.
And then you have Cleveland in classic Cleveland spirit, winless.
Yeah. So then speaking of Cleveland, they did play up against their collegiate brethren, Robert Morris. And as Goose mentioned, they have yet to pick up a win, so they do take a loss against RMU with the Pike mid. So it was a glorious way to go down. But yeah, no wins yet for the Vikings.
Yeah, well, you play stuff like Pike mid, and then you go up against a Rise, and he just runs the game. I mean, there's reasons. So
yeah.
Obviously, they have some drafting to clean up, or maybe they're just trying to do some surprise picks to shake their opponents up.
Oh, it was surprising. just not in the way you want.
Not in a good way.
Yeah, this game was a bit
Wow,
of
this is surprisingly bad.
it was a bit of a spaghetti quest in that like everyone was kind of spaghetti's falling out of everyone's pockets. Everyone's just kind of losing it slowly but surely. It was.
Yeah.
I remember watching it on stream and like just seeing Omnistone set and Kane as a champion, Kane win a game was kind of shocking and disgusting to me.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I think I was watching this game and I was like, this is actually a game where you could go blue Kane and it would be pretty good because of just like all of the squishy champions on the other team. Of course, he did end up going red Kane and it was probably the smarter choice, but honestly, he could have just popped off on blue Kane. But just the fact that he picked Kane in general is very questionable. And then they won with it too, so I don't know. But then I guess we can take this opportunity to go to game 4 here, which was Famous Gaming
Oh,
Prodigy
goodness.
again on the stream against Wolfpack. And honestly, after watching this giant throw, it's shocking that Wolfpack is still in the topper tier of those teams because of what they
Oh.
managed to accomplish here. They were up 6,000 gold, and they lost.
Yeah, it was.
You got one hell of a wombo combo on the
They-
side of.
They lost to Redemption, Jarvin. This guy went second night of Redemption on Jarvin, and they lost to it.
That they did.
This is
I-
not the first time we've seen Jarvin used in ways that should not be done.
Yeah, Jarvin with support items don't go well, as we've seen in
At
PRL
least,
before.
this one's even worse because it was in the jungle. At least the
Yeah.
other one was actually support.
I specifically remember this game because I was casting it and I saw the redemption. I was like, oh, this is maybe cool because the Ornn can upgrade it and then you get to use it twice in one fight. And then they didn't do that. So then after that, my my big brain, like, this is the way the redemption is good, it just got thrown out the window. And
I don't know. The MF popped off that game. A lot
yes,
of-
it's really just because Wolfpack allowed it to, though. I don't.
Yeah, they have so many options to shut down the MF's like options.
Yeah.
And
There
I don't
should be
feel
no
like they
world
utilize it very well.
where MF is able to even look at an enemy champion against Zac and Kiana.
And Nautilus.
Yeah.
Like, there should be no world where that's a possibility, but I remember this game kind of hinged a lot on like another. I hate to use it again, but Spaghetti Quest Baron fights. People kept starting and stopping the Baron, and then
True.
there was about 4 or 5 full-on 5v5 enter the dojo team fights, and it was
Well,
just...
another thing that really, when you have like the Vlad who scales really well, I would hope that he does more damage than Zac 34 minutes into a game. But we didn't see that, and that's another problem, that they didn't have enough damage output to even take care of the backline.
Yeah, it's you can't really break through the Ornn, but they kind of did.
Well, Kiana can.
Yeah, and it's a Zyra too, and this is a very
Well,
similar champion
the
to
thing
the
is,
MF.
though, that if Kiana comes in and makes chaos, it allows the Vlad to get into the backline.
Right.
And then the Zac engage is just making the whole front line have to focus on what he's doing.
Yeah.
So they have the tools. They just didn't utilize it well.
Yeah, and I wanna use this time to shed some light on Triple Lift here, because you can tell that they really do like playing around him and they let him have his way with the draft. I think that those things are not mutually exclusive, and you should still be picking him the good champions in the meta, because we saw him yesterday as well. He picked Vayne in yesterday's game and he lost it. He picked Vayne in this game and also lost it. They just don't have the same range control as something like a Misfortune or the other meta champions that were available. The Aphelios was not banned. The Senna was not banned.
Aphelios isn't banned, which is crazy. Varus is actually pretty good right now too.
Yeah, true.
And he can stay at a good range. But you have the Caitlyn was the only thing banned, and you picked Vayne. Like, it felt like they wanted to play Vayne.
Yeah. I called it like a little bit excusable yesterday when he picked the Vayne into Kaisa, but picking Vayne into Misfortune, not the same effect. And it ended up biting them pretty hard because Burks just ended up popping off so spectacularly, and it all culminated in that triple kill they just donated to him so
I,
freely in the bot lane. I don't
I
know.
think Zaya
It's
would have
really
worked out really nice here.
that probably would. I mean, you could say a number of
Just for the
champions that would have
safety.
worked.
There's a lot of safety in what they can dive you with.
Yeah.
So I don't. Yeah, but yeah, you're right. There's like 50 champions they could have played that were a better choice. So
Yeah, I went into it on the analyst desk about the AD drafts for both Triple Lift and then also their opponents yesterday, which was Lost Collective, and they picked Kaisa in that game in the vein. We'll get there are more Kaisa games to talk about, so we'll talk about this. This will
yeah.
be a common trend with this podcast that people keep picking Kaisa, and she's not good. But Vayne is more egregious, even so. It you can definitely tell the Triple Lift has comfort on it, but it's another thing of like I guess it's a Wolfpack trend because Anarch is also the Vi guy. I I get a lot of shit from him from saying that Vi is bad. He's good at Vi, and it's the same thing. Triple Lift is good at Vayne, but these champions are just not as effective as others in the meta right now, and they just need to be picking better stuff because I do think I can see that Wolfpack has it in them to become this team that can make it into playoffs, but at this rate, their reliance on Triple Lift to play like they play through Triple Lift and Triple Lift's playing bad champions, and those things just do not mix. They need to get him on more strong champions that have more range, especially because you can tell that this is an issue for this team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's pretty much it.
yeah, but
That
with
summed
that,
it up enough.
with that, we alluded to it a little bit with the standings and how things are going. We have an extra week of standings to go through, so every team has played 6 games. We can go over it real quick. As of this moment, Friday before the games of Cinders Division, which doesn't really matter. But anyway, Aether is 5-1, tied with LC Gladiators, who play next week. By the way, they're the second game on stream. They play next week, so that'll be really cool. They're tied in first place, 5-1. Third place is a tie between Wolfpack and Akuma Scythes. Then after that, we've got RMU, FG, and Shenzi's Frenzies 2-4, and Cleveland State Vikings at 0-6. So going into yesterday's games, I was really liking the way that this division was looking, and I thought that this was going to be really entertaining because I thought that 6 of these teams had potential to get in. And then after yesterday, I've lowered that number down to 4, and it is the top 4. And I posed this question to my analysts yesterday. I'm gonna do the same with you guys. Uh, which of these teams in the top 4 do you think doesn't make the cut? Because you can only have 3 in the playoffs, and there are 4. So.
Well, I'm kind of biased.
Yes. Yeah.
I can't
that's
just say
fine.
Akuma because if I say Akuma, I'm probably out of a job.
To be fair, I don't think it's Akuma.
I do think that in any other division they would probably be first or second, but I personally believe that I think Wolfpack would probably be the 4th place team. Their matchup, they've played Aether, right?
Yes, the Aether that's their only loss actually.
Yeah.
Aether's only loss is to Wolfpack.
I think Aether is a very competent team. I think in the second round robin, we'll probably have a lot better luck against them, given that we're kind of taking, again, the first half off. And I think that LC Gladiators is probably right now the best team in the division. They're the most cohesive, and individually, their players are very, very strong.
Yeah.
I really like watching those guys play. So I think it'd be LC Gladiators, Akuma Scythes, and then A3 Esports 1, 2, 3.
I like that order. I think that a lot of my analysts agreed that Wolfpack would be the 4th team. What do you think, Sloth?
I could agree with that. It's a little early for me.
Yeah, of course. There's still
a
4
lot
weeks.
of room. There's still a lot of room to grow. I don't like to push to conclusion too fast because I mean teams are still trying to adapt to all the changes we've had with the new 10.1, 10.2. And I think I want to give it a little bit of time before I start really knocking people out.
Yeah, that's entirely fair. So do you with that being said, then do you think that the bottom half teams have a chance still to get in?
I think that if Cleveland has a chance to make it in, they need to really push the gas now. Like, don't wait until the middle and then to say, okay, we're gonna push. You got to make
Yeah.
those changes. You got to adapt. You got to watch your games, figure out what you're doing wrong, take notes. Find that time instead of doing like random practice with each other. Go watch the game together and see what
Yeah.
actually happened. You'll really learn a lot. Other than that, I mean, a lot of these teams are at that point where it's like only one game away from shifting the standings. So I think there's a lot of room.
Yeah. I want to bring this up right now as we're talking about Cleveland State, that really in PRL, with the way that the playoff structure is set up, if you do get 7 losses, it is very, very unlikely that you get into playoffs. There was one team that had 6 losses that made it in, and that was Asian Invasion.
And
Uh,
that was by the skin of their teeth.
yeah, it was very, very close. That division was very, very tight, um, and they had a really, really tough time getting in, and they had 6 losses. So if Cleveland State takes another loss, just based on how the bracket is set up, it might just be toast for them. I don't know if it's really possible to get in losing to every team in the first round robin. Obviously, you'd have to win against every team in the second round robin, but even then, it might not be enough for them. So they they may have already missed the boat there, but yeah, I'm still excited to see what they can do here. If they can pick up a win, it's going to be pretty hype. Um, but as far as the 2 and 4 teams go, I'm pretty low on Shenzi's Frenzies. I think of those 3, I think they're the least likely to jump back up. And I it's tough to say which team I would put at the top of that. Um, I think at the end of the day, it's probably RMU that I would have as the most likely to break into the top 4. But like I was saying before, I think it's quite unlikely for all 3 of those teams at this point.
See, I think of the 2 and 4 teams, personally, having watched them play and playing against them, I think Famous is actually the team that will decide who does and doesn't make top 3.
Really?
I think that they're the team, sort of like how in every year at Worlds, there's one team who just takes a game off of someone, and that team no longer makes it out of groups,
Yeah,
right?
they're the
And I think
gatekeepers, man.
I think that FG Prodigy is that team this year in Thursday's group.
They're
Cool.
Gigabyte Marines.
I guess so, yeah. In order to be Gigabyte Marines, I think they have to make it out of groups. But
Hey.
so maybe that's unlikely, but
Hey, you're right.
yeah. I think this division is very, very close with still 4 weeks left to go of matches, and the first round robin's about to end with next week's matches, and I'm really pumped to see what becomes of this. And we can also take this time to go over a bit of Akuma Sayas, because we do have the inside man here. Um, you guys have gone completely flip flopped on your weeks here.
Yeah.
You went 2-0, 0-2, and then 2-0 again. Do you credit that more to the level of competition or your team's I guess being week to week?
I think week 2 in particular, we had a pretty poor read on what 10.2 had to offer. It did offer a couple of changes, not sweeping changes, but with set being enabled, set priority is really high. I think that champion is a 100% pick ban level strength champion. I think he's disgusting. Sort of like how Gangplank works, he can't be broken in lane. So we kind of tunneled on, these guys have a set player. So we had to ban set instead of another priority pick. And then come week 3, we had an extra week with the 10.2 patch, and I think it shows, especially in our game versus RMU, how much better we are when we're a little bit more settled.
Yeah. It is a bit strange for you guys because the 2 losses that you have in that same week are also to the teams that are in first place.
Yeah.
So there's obviously a little bit of that, but But yeah, it definitely did seem a bit like that because especially the Conqueror Rumble. I hate to continue shitting on Okada, but
I do it plenty, so
yeah.
don't worry about it.
You know, just you just gotta take a better rune. The pioneer of Rumble mid Doinby. I don't think he ever took Conqueror. So, if he knows not to do it, then I think everyone else probably should too.
It
He
took
might
some
have.
convincing, but he's gone around and he's starting to play Predator.
He
So.
turned trolling into meta. He's just turning trolling into depression.
Yeah. Uh, but I'm glad we got that little insight there because I'm really looking forward to seeing if Akuma sides are in that top three. Like I mentioned, they're tied with Wolfpack, and Wolfpack is the team that we're all uh, the lowest on amongst the top four. So there's still a bit of that. I think you guys play them soon
Next
as
week.
well. Yeah,
Next
you
week.
guys. Let me look.
We play them and Shenzi's Frenzies next week.
Right. Okay. So you're gonna be the first match on the stream then, because the other match is Shenji's Frenzy's Cleveland State. Um, and we're getting to the point where we're going to be featuring the teams that are higher more often. For those of you listening, and that's for the first few weeks we randomize the schedule, and then once it gets to about the halfway point, the second round robin, we have a pretty good idea of where the standings are. So then we feature the higher teams. So but anyway, that I'm looking forward to that match. You guys can break the tie right off the bat. Um, yeah. I guess with that, we can move on to our Cinders division. And we don't have any cheating for this one. These matches are going to happen, to give you guys a timestamp, I guess. This is going to happen in about an hour, is when those matches are going to take place. But as far as the week 2 matches go, our very first one that we watched on the stream was a stomp. It was Tempest Gaming versus Essentia Storm. And we finally got to see the pick that nobody was asking for in Yumi. Pre-buff Yumi.
Oh man, I have a lot to say about Tempest. I think they're probably the worst team in PRL outside of maybe Cleveland State. I think their preparation is awful. I think they come into games without a plan. Their drafts are typically atrocious. They spawned the 97% win rate meme.
Yep.
I don't like anything about this team in the way that they play.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate to see so many things going wrong here for this team. But obviously, like I mentioned, the pioneer issue here is the Yumi pick for at least this game. And then they paired it with the Maokai, and on paper that's a pretty good champion to have with Yumi because you can just latch on and then heal the Maokai up forever and you just can't die. But the problem with having a champion that can't die is that it doesn't deal damage most of the time, and the rest of the team didn't deal damage either. They had Galio mid, and they had Tank Jarvan in the jungle, and then they had the Seer who was forced to lane with the Yumi. And Yumi is definitely not a laning champion. So it was just not the draft for Yumi at all. If you're going to be the Yumi team, you need to actually put some time into it because there's a reason nobody is playing this at all. It's not a good champion. You have to build around it to make it good, and they just didn't.
Cat bad.
Cat bad.
Definitely. Yeah, it all starts with somewhere, and here it started with draft.
Yeah.
Oh boy, it ended with draft as well.
Yeah, it kind of did. Well,
it really did.
It really ended with Fancy Italian 1v2ing people like 4 times.
Well, they had too much sustain through these fights. They could just sit there forever and fight them. They didn't care.
Yeah, this is the ideal composition you pick Cassio into, and even without that, Cassio is a good champion. So Fancy Italian just had a field day here. It was not close at all. Even though it was kind of long, it was 30 minutes. There was no question at any point whether or not Essentia was going to win. We just needed to wait for them to do it. They did take their time. They did pick up the Drake Soul and then ended with that. But honestly, they didn't really need to. And yeah, this is it's really unfortunate because I don't know. I guess it's not too unfortunate because Essentia is what I think is the number one team in this division, despite the standings, and Tempest is pretty clearly the lowest. I guess apart from Virginia Tech, but we haven't seen them play. So
Yeah, the FF Kings.
yes, the FF Kings. I've heard that they're playing today. So
Okay.
if obviously this is going to be released after the games, so you guys already know if they did. If they are, then they're going to be on stream, so that'll be cool. But yeah, I hope they play because I want to see. It was a similar situation last split with the collegiate team in your division, Goose, where they FF'd like 5 games, and then they came back and they were actually like almost close to getting into
Yeah.
playoffs, which was
NCSU
really
Junior
cool.
Varsity.
Yep.
Shoutouts to them.
Yeah, I wish that we would have seen that team more, because that was really cool. So maybe Virginia Tech is the new NCSU. They do only have 4 losses, so if they are the best team in this division miraculously, then they can go 10-4, and that's a playoff for sure. So I don't know. That's not really too likely, but it could happen. But anyway, yeah, that's enough to talk about Virginia Tech. Anyway, we haven't seen them play. Our next game up that we watched was Imperial Knights versus Lost Collective Avengers, and Lost Collective Avengers pretty significantly weaker than their sister team, I gotta say.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't
and
think it's very close.
well,
Yeah,
we got to see the Trundle, that new patch Trundle that has the ridiculous movement speed with the ridiculous slow.
I actually don't think
And
this was
it
on that patch.
was this not this patch?
No.
Oh no, you're right. That wasn't on this patch.
Yeah, I think this was 10-1 Trundle. So even
Actually, it
Even
would have been
without the buff.
10.2. It would have
oh,
been
it would have been.
10.2. Yeah.
Okay.
That was
Yeah.
enabled.
Well, either way, it was very, very good.
Yeah, I mean it looks like it shut. I mean it shut down the Sejuani, and then you had the roaming Morgana with the what are they called, glacial augment. So there's no escape. It just looked like they kind of just walked around them and out rotated them.
Yeah, this was the game where Cruiser got a 12-minute pentakill, and then a few minutes later he got another quadra kill, and he he was ahead enough to where he built a Runen's Hurricane on Zaya. So I it just was not close. The
I
giant wombo combo that they had around the Drake pit was nuts, and then obviously it resulted in Cruiser getting a pentakill. He's very, very good. Cruiser is very, very good.
I would have to agree. I've watched him for a little while now. He
Right.
was good friends with the Zephyr team from last split. So I've had chances to see him play in their in houses. He's very, very skilled individual player. I think that he's one of the better AD carries in the league.
I would agree, yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't think his support is very close to him as far as skill level. I respect their top laner a lot. I think Akira is a very good player individually. Barbacoa is a very versatile mid laner. Imperial Knights is a fun team to watch.
Yeah.
But
Because Cruiser's on it mostly.
yeah. And on the side of Lost Collective, you can look at my solo queue account. It's AKM Joker. I am a Sejuani genius. And even the Sejuani genius himself, the literal king of pigs, I do not play this champion. Do not play Sejuani. This champion, especially with Olaf being a pickable champion and now Trundle buffs, do not play Sejuani. And if you're going to play Sejuani, you have to pair it with a much stronger melee mid than Rumble. Rumble Sejuani synergy kind of non-existent. You want something like Irelia, something like Camille, maybe even the Kled, put it mid, but you're not playing towards topside right now.
Yeah. And you can see that they banned out the Jarvan and the Olaf so that they could pick Sejuani, but it still got counterpicked. The number of Sejuani counterpicks are endless
Trundle's
right
like
now.
A huge counter Sejuani.
Right.
You get that huge. I mean, it's not even a huge counter Sejuani. It's a huge counter to their whole team when they pick Sejuani because they just get so much armor.
Yeah, it was. That pick is so detrimental to your team if you do end up choosing it right now, and that was one of the major reasons why that giant pentakill fight happened so early on in the game, because Sejuani just not a champion at that point. But yeah, I do also want to I do also want to point out that Navalera, G friend Navalera, girlfriend, I don't know, the Morgana player shouldn't have been a Morgana player in this game. Morgana is not good. And if you're a regular to the podcast, you know what my opinions are on Morgana. This champion is so often picked for her black shield, and that is a terrible reason to choose the champion. The rest of her kit is so bad. There's no movement. The lockdown is very, very limited on a very slow moving projectile. It's slower than Ivern and Q, by the way, and it's it's so immobile. Even though you have to be in the middle of the enemy team to use the ultimate, I could talk about why Morgana sucks for hours, but it did get them a win here. It's kind of similar to how Kane got a win last week on Thursday too. It's going to happen, but it's not because of the champion at all. Uh, you could be picking a bunch of different champions, but anyway, that's enough there on the Morgana rant. I like the Trundle pick here a lot. I like Cruiser. I like watching him in any game that he's on. And we did get to see him in another game as well later on, but that's game 4. We can move on to game 3 now, which was Essentia Storm taking on Soulbound Tsunami. And this game was actually super, super cool just because it had a Bard in it, and the Bard player was nuts. The Core Havoc had a super sick Bard in this game. I loved watching it. Like, Bard is really, really good. I don't know why he took Omni Stone, but whatever, man. He can take any rune. That guy is just really, really good at Bard. I'm really, really excited to see if, one, that draws bans because he's so good at it, and two, if he is going to play it again because it was really, really good.
Yeah, it's the first time I've seen this build before, because
Yeah.
I haven't really seen much Bard.
It's been floating around Reddit a bit. You go Dead Man's Slayer, Rapid Fire.
It just looks hilarious on paper.
Yeah. It's really good when you're ahead, and when you're good at Bard, you can get ahead pretty easily. So it's the go-to good build for
The more you're
Bard.
ahead, the more you're collecting your meeps, your whatever, and you're just powering yourself up. So
yeah, I imagine he did take Sorcery Secondary for Celerity Water Rocking. I don't actually know, because we can't see his full rune page here. I wish we could, but he does have the Omni Stone, which, like I mentioned, I don't know. I don't know what rune he wants to take. Usually you want to Electrocute there, but I guess he's just limit testing because he's that good at the champion. Other than that, though, Blazing Cake on the Akali. Akali's just a really good champion, so of course that's going to look good. But
nerf's coming soon.
Yeah, for good reason. I want to shed some light here on the Essentia side of things, because of course it wasn't just Core Havoc in this game. There were 9 other players, surprisingly, and Fancy Italian did put on a really nice show on the LeBlanc. He wasn't the best LeBlanc we saw this weekend, but it looked pretty solid. The problem was that he was against Akali, and Akali is just really, really good.
Yeah,
but
he didn't get much damage out.
Right. The main issue with this composition is that, and we're gonna talk about it with a lot of other games too. This is not just an Essentia problem. Do not pick Senna as your AD carry if you don't have means of peeling it. It just does not go well for you. Senna has so much damage and so much utility that she's worth picking, but you have to make sure she doesn't die. And playing against this dive composition here with Akali, Kled, and Lucian that are going to be close range with the Senna, you have to have something that can peel it off, and Swain is not that champion.
Yeah, I would have liked to see something a little more aggressive.
I would like Caitlyn here.
When I see Essentia, I think of it's the Fancy Italian show, and if Laxon has a good game, they're going to win 9 out of 10 games. So Laxon has played with Yellow so far this season. He's also played with Demon. I think Yellow is significantly better than Demon, by the way.
I think Demon was their top for a brief period of time.
So the problem I'm having with Laxon and Demon is that it doesn't seem like a lot of time they're on the same page. I've played with Laxon. We were on Essentia together when I played there. He's very lane focused, and he's very vocal in what he wants out of his laning phase. And I feel like just watching, there seems to be some sort of disconnect between the two of them, because Laxon is going forward and Demon is running back. So I would like to see Laxon maybe either take it a step back or maybe be paired with someone who's a little more willing to take trades, because I think Lou Laxon is a super good player. He just, he seems to have senior moments where he kind of just like loses himself.
Yeah. He had pop-off games on the Swain last split too, where he did get MVP votes from us as well. So
yeah, but I think it's out in the open. It's less. I don't think it's as good as it was.
yeah, it doesn't pair well with the meta ADs is the real problem.
No.
But yeah, I agree that Caitlyn would have looked better here, even though Senna is so strong, just because Laxon plays that way, and Caitlyn caters to that a bit more, and she has the 90 caliber net to get away.
Well, it would have helped them get more lane priority. So
right, yeah. But anyway, with that, we can put that to rest here. Essentia did unfortunately take their first loss against Soulbound, but good on Soulbound to get that, honestly, because like I mentioned before, I think Essentia is the team to beat in this division. But we do have to talk about the actual undefeated team, which is SPK Defiance, and they played up against Imperial Knights. And this was a game where I just felt so bad for Cruiser, because like I mentioned, he is really, really good, and he's often the 1v9 performer here. Not to say that the rest of his team is like falling under him. They usually support him well, but Captor and Barbacoa just got so far behind in this game.
Yeah.
And this is actually what I wanted to point out as the best LeBlanc performance we saw all weekend, where Majestically just went he went to town on these people. Just this is how LeBlanc is meant to be played here, and they had the backup with it with the Rek'Sai as well. And that mid jungle duo was super, super nice. I really, really liked it.
Yeah, I don't really know how this draft. I didn't watch the draft, but it's a tragic draft when you draft a losing mid matchup and a losing jungle matchup, because especially into LeBlanc, the game is going to get out of hand very quickly if you don't have a little bit of a way to slow down the game. And with Lucian and Set, there is no ability to slow down the game because those champions need to win, and they need to win quickly.
Yeah.
It was just kind of a big draft difference, I think.
Yeah. Not to mention they went full AD too, so Ninja Tabby was a hot commodity here.
To shout out to what you said earlier, I think Kai'Sa's really bad right now. Well, not really bad. I think she's exceptionally bad, actually, after the Stormrazor nerf, because 5 AD, while it may not be big for other champions, actually pushes her Q upgrade back 2 entire levels, to the best of my knowledge.
Or 2 Doran's Blades.
Yeah, exactly. So, which means you're not really playing Kai'Sa for the early game, but if you delay her power spike any further than it already is, she's just kind of going to get run over by champions like Aphelios, champions like Misfortune,
or Lucian.
Champions like or Lucian, exactly. But unfortunately, Cruiser was kind of team diffed here. So
yeah, he really was. Like I mentioned before, I'm really excited whenever Cruiser is on the stream. I really like watching his gameplay, because I think he's a phenomenal AD. But yeah, they drafted full AD. They drafted losing mid jungle. You can't make that mistake when Cruiser is on your team, because he's going to carry you later on. I know a certain team that Goose is particularly close to that also has a similar thing that they could have done, or did a lot in the last split.
Oh boy, can't wait.
Yeah.
Well, and the Kiana pick there's a time and a place for the Kiana pick, because Kiana's really strong right now. And she's like pick or ban right now in most like higher level play. So I just think it didn't fit here.
I actually, this is also going to be a common trend here with the games, but I think that all of the Kiana mids that we saw on stream this week were really underwhelming. And this was after the nerf too.
Don't force yourself on it.
Yeah. I think that the only player that I've seen that's really impressed me on the Kiana is Ryanek. Ryanek's Kiana is actually kind of nice. I'm not going to lie.
It is
kind of nice. But it's just kind of seems to me like a lot of teams, specifically this week, picked the Kiana early in draft, but didn't take into account that she lost 15% attack speed at level 1 on her W, which means that she's not a flex pick anymore. She 100% has to go mid unless you want your jungler to start building car bombs in the jungle while he dies to jungle camps.
Yeah,
So,
and the flex pick is really the reason why she has such a high priority in pro play. So I think
Yeah.
this is one of those things where people are looking at pro stats and they're not analyzing it correctly here, as opposed to picking Kaisa, which is just a symptom of not looking at pro stats.
I mean, yeah, I will say for the Kiana to succeed, they have to have, they need to be able to control vision really well, and they have to be able to set up their waves right.
And they need
Or
magic
you're
damage.
never going to be able to set up those flanks.
They also committed a very cardinal sin, which is picking Kiana early and banning the Rumble away from their own team. Those two champions are ridiculous together. That's been true for over half a year. As Clutch were kind of the pioneer team for that, it is now running rampant in LPL, or at least it has from the games that were played. But yeah, I don't know why they did that, but they picked full AD, so that's the least of their problems, honestly. Anyway, now we can get on to the standings here, and like I mentioned, SPK Defiance with that win over Imperial Knights, they are in first place, the sole possession of first place as well. Behind them, we've got CLT Phoenix, Essentia Storm tied for second place. And then Imperial Knights and LC Avengers and Soulbound Tsunami are all tied for fourth. And then Virginia Tech and Tempest are winless still. I believe they actually play against each other this week. So if they're still
Put
winless...
that on stream.
Yeah, I think it is on stream, actually. Well, let me look. I actually can't look right now, but you guys will know if it was streamed or not. That if that's on stream or not. But yeah,
they know the future.
Might be a clown fiesta there. We'll have to see. But as for the standings here, we didn't get to see CLT Phoenix play last week, so I don't have too much to talk about for them, but seems to be going well for them as far as the standings go. They took 2 wins last week, so good on them for doing that. And then the real talking points for me, at least, for the teams here are SPK Defiance and Essentia Storm, and whether or not SPK is actually the best team in this division. I already spoiled it. I think they're not. I think Essentia is better than them. And it's a little bit biased because we did watch them in the last split, but
we also know
good.
how good their adaptation is,
right?
And that's something that doesn't change just within split.
Tea Time is still there. Yeah,
he is there, and he is a fantastic coach. So with his coaching, I never put this team down. I think they'd be able to adapt to a lot of the patches coming up and any scenario they get themselves into. That's what makes them a top tier team.
I think looking forward to the SPK Essentia matchup, it's in my opinion, entirely dependent on how majestically and Arthidius navigate the 2v2 versus Fancy Italian and either Jweb or Striker. I think Fancy Italian, I think very highly of him. Super good player.
Me too.
Like incredible pop-off level player. Mm-hmm. And I think if Essentia can take control of the mid 2v2 and draft a very strong 2v2 matchup, I think that its bot difference is going to be very large because I think very highly of Essentia's bot lane.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him hit a little more meta though.
Yeah, we're likely gonna have to miss it, the three of us, because that's happening in about 30 minutes. But that's all right. We'll
make VODs.
Yeah, we'll be able to watch the VOD, and you guys will probably watch it live anyway if you're listening to this part of the podcast, especially. But yeah, I'm really high on Essentia Storm especially, and SPK Defiance have a super sick mid jungle, like we saw on display last week. The other main team I want to talk about, again skipping CLT Phoenix because we didn't get to see them, is Imperial Knights, just because I think very, very highly of Cruiser, and I think if the team can pull a TFT and play around Indigo, in this case Cruiser, a bit more, I think they can start getting these wins, and they can use that to shape how they want to play the game and adapt that to different scenarios. Of course, they might be able to, they might fall into the pit of only having that one play style, but it gets you to semifinals. So you as long as you have a good AD, and I think Cruiser's really good. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this team does end up shaping up. But down the standings a little bit further, a lot of credit to Soulbound Tsunami. They did take that game off of Essentia Storm.
Yeah,
There's a lot of
that's a big win.
yeah, it is. It definitely is. I'm looking forward to seeing if they can take some wins off of the other higher teams, because that is definitely going to that win alone over Essentia is I think enough to put them in the conversation of the playoffs. At least for a little bit. We'll have to see how they
It's
perform
a
in this next week.
consistency thing.
Right. This is they're playing against CLT Phoenix and LC Avengers, so we'll have to see what comes of that.
Those are big names. So
Yeah.
we're gonna have to.
And speaking of LC Avengers, I mentioned how I am a lot lower on this team than their sister team, the Gladiators. But
Yeah, but
they're a little bit of
they
an
did
unknown to
take
me, but
they did take a game off from Imperial Knights, which is their main like contender right now. So
yeah, I'm I think there's still a lot of ways that this division could go, but as far as teams that I think are quite strong, there's Essentia Storm, there's SPK Defiance mid jungle, and there's Imperial Knights AD. Um, and yeah, that's my that's my take on this division so far. That's my 1, 2, 3 as well. Without seeing too much of CLT Phoenix, of course. Um, yeah. Any closing thoughts here on the Cinders division, guys?
yeah, if Virginia Tech plays, they're gonna beat Tempest Gaming.
I I actually am not going to be on the liftoff because I'm doing this right now, but I did predict that for the stream. So as long as Virginia Tech plays, I did predict them to win that game. If they FF again, then that's instantly wrong. But I'll
It's
have to see.
also instantly gone.
Yeah. Uh, Similar to Cleveland State Vikings, if they do forfeit the next two games, they're probably out of contention for playoffs as a whole. But anyway, we can get on to the Ashes division now, and this features another Akuma team, and that is Akuma Katanas, and they played their first game, the very first game of the night, against X1 Brotherhood, the Dorito team, and
Yes.
this was a heartbreaker here as an Asian Invasion fan of old.
Yeah, for Biden not on the mark.
Yeah. Well, he's forbidden now. I don't know if
No,
you knew.
he's for Biden.
Yeah, he's forbidden to play Tom Ked. He's forbidden to play Tom Ked.
He's Tom benched.
So
yeah.
I can go into our draft a little bit. Again, my philosophy is that growth is more important than regular season standing. I think whether or not you finish first in your division or finish third, it doesn't really matter. A team like Dawn Revenant is something that I'm looking at, and the way that they grew as a 5-man unit was admirable, and I would say more impressive than like going 14-0 and losing to them, or how we were 12-2 and we lost
Right.
to Akuma Blades, who was a second seed team. So I think that seeding doesn't particularly matter in this tournament, given the large individual skill gaps. So I'm kind of, again, just trying to limit tests, trying to see what we can and can't work with. And this was a failed experiment, to say the least.
Yeah, but I love the draft. The draft is beautiful.
That being said, I do think, like, if Forbidden was better at Tom Kench, I think the draft was fine. Unfortunately, I mean, we're not good at it.
Yeah.
Shockpool, who changed his name to Coronavirus, by the way, shout outs to that guy.
Yep.
Is a phenomenal top laner, and I would say probably the best top laner in this group. Maybe one of the better ones in the league. He popped off. Klexo popped off as well. Yeah, bot lane was 118. So we don't talk about that game.
Yeah, we can breeze over it a little bit, but I do want to touch on X1 Brotherhood here because I really liked their draft a lot. They had the Varus Braum, which punished the Aphelios Tom Kench really well. To their credit, Braum is, or I guess to Chris's credit, to Forbidden's credit, Braum is really a tough matchup for Tom Kench. So there's a bit of that. But yeah, he definitely did not look too great on the pick, all things considered. Varus Braum, very nice lane there. Really a lot of protection there for the Varus, which you really do need. They had the Ornn, which is the premier tank in the meta, and then they had the Yasuo Gragas combo. So their draft was super nice as well. And the Yasuo Gragas was really, really big in the mid game too. They just smacked people up. Uh, really, really liked the combos that they were able to put off. Um, and yeah, I'm excited to see what this team can do. And they are tied with Akuma Katanas as well at 3-1. So they're up there. They're if the standings were freeze framed right here, they would be in playoffs. So this is definitely a team that you have to consider here because they took this game off of Akuma Katanas. Had they not, it might not be the case for them, as their only other wins are. Let me cheat and look real quick. They beat Jet Black and they beat Unity C Flash, which was an FF. So yeah, if it were not for that, then they wouldn't be in my consideration all that much. But so they had a really good game here, and I'm excited to see what they can do moving forward. If this is going to be a springboard for them, or if it was a little bit more of a forbidden from Tom Kench fluke.
Yeah, I definitely think both teams drafted really well. Whether it was executed or not, that's a different story. But both teams had a beautiful draft, and you're seeing what's really strong about what's in the meta right now.
Yeah.
So we'll see if these duoers can fix whatever happened in bot lane.
Yeah, it was a bit of bot diff that game, but I'm sure that June and Forbidden can bounce back from that. But with that, we're gonna move to our second game of the Ashes division, which is SBK Embers versus Ferocity. And SBK Embers looking a lot better than they even were in the Friday division of last split. A lot of that is because they did bring in probably the best jungler in the league last split in My Pet Turtle. There's a case for there's a case for some carry and there's a case for Propa. So I guess we'll say that he's top 3 junglers from last split. In My Pet Turtle, he subbed in for SPK Embers. Looked phenomenal in this first game, especially. He played the Hecarim and he just completely ran over the game against Betsnet here for Ferocity. Super, super good game for him especially, but SPK Embers just really, really had a pop-off game here, and they ended it quite quickly, which is good. It's a really good sign for this team that they're ending games quick.
Yeah,
and
I think BeastNet sucks. Just like right off the hop. I don't respect that jungler whatsoever. I don't think he's very good. Everyone else on the team is pretty good. I think Shut Boomer is a pretty solid top laner. Rough Beans is probably one of the best mids in the league,
I would agree.
all things considered. And their bot lane is okay. Very 50-50 on Miracle. He was a top laner. I've known of him for a while. He used to play, I think, with MMG for a little while back.
That likely explains why he picked Kaisa then, because he's probably not comfortable on the meta stuff. But it's not excusable still.
I do think BeatsNet is really bad, and he's going to get exposed by better junglers, like
Doubtful.
he did against Doubtful.
Yeah.
It's nice to see Sleepily still putting in that work. Sleepily, always a good carry from last split, coming over to this split, and still putting in a ton of damage for the team.
Right. I'm really excited for this team, and I was as soon as I saw their roster, because one of my I guess one of my more infamous things was that I had Hims at number 3 on my top 20 players list, and he ended up super flopping. And I still think to this day, I'll disclaimer it. I was wrong. Okay, I was wrong. He was not top 3. I'll say though that I still think that if his team around him was better, he would look like a top 3 player. And they did exactly that. They've got Deku in the top lane now instead of Sir who I believe is on. Oh, he's on one of the Friday division teams
Avengers.
now. Yeah, he's on Avengers, and they've got Tick in for Yarg. I don't know who Tick is, but good choice.
Anything's better than Yarg.
Yeah, and then they also have Timeless, who used to be Tranquil. I like Tranquil / Timeless. I think he didn't have too much time to grow with SPK Embers because he did sub in just for playoffs. So he played one series and then he was done. So we haven't really seen too much of him with Hims and Sleepily, but we didn't see him today or on this day either, as My Pet Turtle was playing. But I'm just super glad that Sleepaway and Hims first of all stuck together, but then also they built a team around them. It looks like, and it's already proving to be very good. They're 4-0, the only undefeated team here.
Yeah, I think they're better than last split. Realistically, Hims, you guys know how I feel about him. I don't think he's very good. I think that he gets a lot of resources and doesn't do much with them. But I think the upgrades in the top lane and in the jungle, or maybe not in the jungle if Timeless comes back, but I do think Turtle is better than Timeless. I
Yeah,
think it was very
I would agree.
important, and most importantly, I think getting Yarg out of that team was kind of like step one to make that team respectable in
Yes,
my eyes,
I would
because
agree.
Yarg is exceptionally bad.
I said it a lot of times. If you want to hear me shit on Yarg, then go back and watch countless VODs
In
of
his
me.
own words, you suck balls.
Yes, yeah. Oh Yarg, what a guy. The Jarvan support player. But anyway, SP Gambers, undefeated team in the Ashes division, and this is the first game that we saw them in week 2. Really well done. Another example of why Kaisa should not be picked. Uh, it,
There will be more.
there are more. Absolutely, there are more. Um, the next game is not an example of that. The next game is another Akuma game. They played Akuma Katanas played against Red Hair Pirates, and I kid you not, for my notes that I have written down, I have 4 words, and it says "Doubtful is a fiend." I didn't write anything else for this game because if you watched it, you already know that Doubtful is in fact a fiend, and that was what this game was. It was 21 minutes long. Doubtful had 20 kill participation. Uh, Absolutely nuts on the Lee Sin. It's definitely making up for the last game, which wasn't his fault, by the way. But he bounced back with another Lee Sin performance, and it was out of this world. I think you have to ban Lee Sin against this team, and I'm sorry for saying that right now, Goose, because you guys probably don't want that to happen.
Well, see, I do want that to happen, because then people have to ban Rengar and Lee Sin against us, which
Yeah.
means we're kind of chilling. Um, so this draft was kind of like we actually just kind of draft kingdomed them. They picked losing matchups everywhere.
Yeah.
So there's a weird trend I've noticed, and you can also watch the LEC and you'll see this trend of 80 carries who want to play Zaya but supports who are not playing Rakan. Zaya is a worthless champion without Rakan, in my opinion. I think she's really bad compared to the likes of Senna, MF, Aphelios, Lucian, Varus. I think she's well below all 5 of those. And you can see it in professional play as well. A guy like Forgiven, who's falling back onto Desire, and it looks completely worthless. In this case, it was the truth again. They picked Zaya into Lucian Braum, so I don't
Yeah.
really know what they expected.
Yeah, I will say that she's not like it's not as harsh as you're putting it out to be, but it's definitely pretty bad. There are 2 reasons to pick Zaya. Ideally, you get them both to line up. One is so you can set up your support playing Rakan because the duo is still functional, especially against something like Senna where you can just dive her over and over. That actually is valid. And then the obvious other one is that she has self peel, but
I just
there are
think
better champions for that too.
you should never be picking Zaya unless there's 5 80 carry bans, or if your 80 carry is not able to play Aphelios.
Yeah, and this might have been that instance, as Aphelios was not banned, and they didn't pick it either. So I don't know.
There's no AD bans.
Well, there was Senna was banned phase 2, so they had a lot of opportunities to do it. They had a
Oh,
lot of
you're right, it
opportunities
was.
to pick Senna or Aphelios or Misfortune or Varus. Obviously not Lucian because that's what June picked.
Well,
But
Red Heart, the Red Pirates, they've been having some tough matches for the
yeah,
first 3 games,
yes,
and
they definitely
and then
have.
they even took a loss to Jet Black. So uh, there there's really no room for you you know to grow right now. You gotta like be able to go back and see what's going on because
Yeah.
all these people are contenders for top. You just lost to every single one of them.
Yeah.
And then you lost to the one person who's matching with you.
Yeah.
So,
and speaking of that one person,
not a great situation.
speaking of that one team, we can move on to them because I think. Well, I mean, we can get more onto Akuma things with Goose afterward, but yeah, definitely a better performance there for sure from Akuma. You could tell that they were upset with how the first game went, and they took it out on on the Pirates. Uh, Unlucky day for Pirates that they were in the crosshairs there. But yeah, for the fourth game of the night was SPK Embers taking on Jet Black, and like you mentioned, Jet Black are tied up with the Red Hair Pirates at 1-3. And this might sound crazy, but I liked this look from Jet Black. I think that they did a pretty good job in this game. The only problem, and I was talking with Goose about this before, the only problem is they left Deku's Fiora up, and they blinded Aatrox into it.
This dude is literally in the Parry Club. It's embarrassing. And so there was some drama after the game where Emma said, oh, well, the roster doc wasn't updated. Sure, but just take 2 seconds to look at the lobby and see that Deku is in there with the freaking Parry tag from the Fiora Club.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
They also played a game on stream earlier, too. And
it's actually shocking that you would blind pick Aatrox into a Fiora player. That is the most disrespectful thing you could do to someone.
And they did it.
And they got punished for it.
Yeah. It's really a shame too, because Cam and Hiccup actually did really, really well in the early game with their Jarvan Orianna, and Emma was playing a real champion too. She was playing Leona.
Well, she didn't build Stoneplate, so
yeah, she
no,
didn't.
really.
She didn't build Stoneplate. She built the second best option, which is Zeke's. And a bit of there's a bit of how they picked Senna with no peel, a common trend, as I mentioned. I don't know why teams are doing that, but I will say that 4 players on Jet Black actually looked quite good in this game. It's just that Hit 'em Up Rob got completely dumpstered by Deku in the top lane by Fiora. He was on the inhibitor at like 17 minutes with the Rift Herald. The game lasted 24 minutes, and it was pretty much exclusively Deku out macroing them in the side lane. That's how fast Rob was losing the lanes. No one could match this Fiora because there was just no champion that could do it. And it's like Goose is saying, it's just absolutely embarrassing that they did this against Deku. That's his champion. He's Fiora player, and they left it up. They drafted directly into it. And this is what's going to happen. I think that SPK, if they do have Deku on their roster for the rest of the games, you have to consider this every time now. And they've made an example of JB, as it were, with this game.
Definitely.
Yeah. And there's really not much more to say about that. Like, I think that My Pet Turtle was a little bit underwhelming here. I think Cam actually did out jungle him for the most part, up until the macro things were happening, and then
we've seen him on the rec side before, last split back on Recon 5, and it just seemed underwhelming on the rec side as well. I don't think it's his style of champ. But I mean, you have to be able to play anything, so
right. Yeah, I also
something you need to work on.
One last note I want to leave this game off on is that Jet Black took no objectives the entire game. No turrets, no drakes, no Rift Heralds. So My Pet Turtle was still controlling that stuff. It was just a little bit less of a pop-off game from him, but yeah.
Well, we're used to a lot of early game aggression from him, but it seemed like they more wanted to split into this, let top lane walk it down, while
which
we
worked.
Just keep them off of objectives.
Well. Yeah. But anyway, that's all we got from the Cinder or the Ashes division matches here. We can now get into the standings, which are a little bit skewed because there were some FFs, there were some match reports missing, I believe. So I think Ferocity is 2-0. They're 2-2, excuse me. I think that's the case.
I believe so.
Because so then they're tied with TFT, who is also 2-2, and Unity is 0-4. I believe that is the case. We're gonna work on that assumption. If we're wrong, then we'll learn soon. But yeah, we didn't get to see TFT play on the stream because they were against the FF team. That was going to be their game that they had streamed. But Unity Flash has yet to play a game. So we didn't get to watch that one. Again, similar thing to the other FF teams. Play the game, please, so we can talk about you, because there's nothing to talk about. I saw we had a question about Unity Food Flash in the questions Discord. There's nothing to talk about. You guys haven't played, so play your games, please, so we can talk about you. But anyway, yeah, as far as standings go, SPK Embers 4-0, X1 Brotherhood and Akuma Katanas at 3-1, TFT and Ferocity at 2-2, Jet Black, Red Hair Pirates at 1-3, and then Unity Flash at the bottom there. So this is another situation where I'm gonna ask you guys: is SPK? It's the same exact question. Is SPK actually the strongest team in this division? I guess Goose is quite biased here, but
Yeah.
Well, obviously Katanas is the best team.
yeah.
We'll see it on Saturday. I think my personal power rankings are Katanas, then SPK, then X1 Brotherhood, but I could be convinced to put X1 above SPK. They're working with Thin Uncle Phil.
Oh, really?
X1 Brotherhood is. Yeah,
I did not know that.
He's working with them. I think he's smart. I think he does have some kind of like boomer opinions on how the game works sometimes. But overall, Alex is a smart guy, and I really am looking forward to see how X1 Brotherhood grows.
Yeah, that sways my opinion of them a little bit, actually, for the better, obviously. As he did have a major influence on Asian Invasion last split, got them all the way up to the quarterfinals, from the third seed team as well. So that's really cool. But I'm gonna for the sake of my predictions here, I'm gonna pretend that you didn't just say that, so that I can say what I was going to about these teams, just based on how they've looked in the past 2 weeks. I think Akuma Katanas and SPK are going to fight for that first spot for sure. I'm really excited for that match, and I think for the third place, I am actually going to put Ferocity there, despite Betsnet not looking good. I think that the rest of their squad is looking good enough, especially Rough Beans. I think Rough Beans is in a situation similar to Klexo was last split, where he's likely to have games where he just 1v9s and then they win off of that. And I think that this is actually going to be a pretty similar situation to what Asian Invasion we're in as well, where you have to, well, there's a lot actually. You have to fight against Jet Black to get into playoffs. You are probably going to be fighting for the third place spot, and it's going to be really, really close. I think that they are going to be able to do it by the end of the split. I could be proven wrong very soon, obviously, as there are still 5 weeks left for this team to play. But I'm pretty high on Ferocity. I think that they have it in them to get up there, especially with Rough Beans. Like you mentioned, he's a phenomenal player. I think they need to stop picking Kaisa. If you're listening, Ferocity, stop picking Kaisa. Stop picking Gragas too. Gragas has kind of been pushed out of the meta unless you're playing Yasuo, which maybe Rough Beans does, but without it, there's not a lot of reason.
I think Gragas is fine. Gragas' priority is kind of rising a bit in pro play, but I think that you have to pick a super, super strong mid jungle 2v2 because Gragas, like, I'm thinking like Gragas Kiana, Gragas LeBlanc. That's the only situation where I pick
that's a lot what you're seeing.
Yeah. I am I guess that's where I am a bit. I think that scaling is quite good, but you have to have. I agree that the mid jungle they have to be early game to some extent, but I don't think that Gragas without Yasuo scales as well as other champions that fill the same spot. I could just be wrong, honestly, but I think that I think that first of all, tank tops are pretty good. You're seeing it a lot with Ornn, but I think a few others could be slotted in there. I guess this is
No,
getting
I
off on a
think what you
tangent a
meant to.
bit,
I think
but
what you meant to say was, Ornn tops are good. Tanks are.
well, I think Cho'Gath has a spot
Cho'Gath
at the
is
table.
honestly, you could just shove Cho'Gath mid and he counters out a lot of them.
Maybe. But yeah, that I think that's getting too far down the rabbit hole of what the
Yeah.
meta is.
Well, I just wanted to quickly go over with SBK that I think they're a little overhyped right now.
You think
They're
so?
4-0, but they really haven't played at the other teams that are really high in the standings. Like they play Akuma Katanas. Oh wait, you guys already played, didn't you?
Nope,
Nope,
they
we have
didn't.
not.
They
You haven't
they
played
they got an FF win against Unity C. They won against Red Hair, Ferocity, and
it?
Jet Black. So you're
Yeah,
right. They haven't
they're
been tested
not.
at
They
all.
haven't really shown their potential yet, and I think we don't want to let them slip by too fast.
Yeah.
I'm watching out for X1 Brotherhood. I think they've put on a lot of a show for people.
Yeah,
I think they got a lot of good squad.
I think it's very similar to SPK, where they haven't played against the best competition. Obviously,
Mhm.
disregarding Akuma Katanas, but they had an off game there with the Tom Kench. Um, I'm sorry, Chris. By the way, if you're listening, you're probably listening. I'm sorry about what we've done to you, but you kind of did it to yourself. Anyway, the I am I'm more willing to put them up there because the Uncle Phil is on this team, and because they took the win off of Akuma Katanas, who is a team you have to beat to get into the playoffs, probably. So just based on that, I think they're definitely the favorite to get in
We'll
over
see next
Ferocity.
week because
But
it's not gonna be lower pack teams playing against SBK this week, so we're gonna see how these other teams shape.
yeah, very true. Well, if SBK could very easily take an 0-2. We haven't really seen TFT Supreme. They didn't get to play on the stream, like I mentioned. So we'll have to see what they can accomplish here. They are 2-2, but yeah.
They are very unimpressive, just so you know.
All right, I'll remember that.
They beat Unity C and Jet Black.
That's true. Yeah, it's
Wow.
it's a real shame
stats
that
right
like
there.
a lot of these wins have come from a team that is only FF'd and Jet Black, who is a meme.
Yeah.
It's pretty unlucky,
But a
but
good meme.
yeah, it's a pretty good meme. We'll talk more, I think, about Jet Black a bit later on, as there was a question regarding them. It wasn't regarding them, but it we're gonna make it regarding them. Uh, so yeah, as for the Akuma spin on here, because we do have you here, Goose, we do want to milk the content there, you know, unashamedly. So this
Utter
this
me
might
this.
this might be this might be a question that you don't want to answer, but if you do want to answer, I'll ask it anyway. Do you think that Akuma Katanas is the stronger team compared to Scythes?
Akuma Scythes.
Yeah.
Well, I was
I
gonna ask
think-
him that later too.
I think both teams are very good at what they do. Scythes depends. So recently, Scythes' performance has been kind of coin flip. Katanas has been very consistent because I have them playing a very specific style that they're incredible at. I think it's pretty close. I'm looking forward to seeing both of them grow. Katanas last season on Asian Invasion just kind of lacked. I hate to say like a plan, but basically they were missing structure.
Yeah.
And I'm
I can agree with
trying
that.
to
Yeah.
give them that now.
Thin Uncle Phil is very much a draft coach and
Yeah.
not as much an in-game coach, I think. He might
So
disagree,
I'm-
but that's
He
what
just
I.
yells at you what to pick.
I'm doing my best to grow as many of the Akuma teams as possible. And I think it's pretty close. I won't say either one is better because I think they're both pretty even.
I want to give the caveat there because as of this moment, I think it is Katanas by a little bit. Katanas, of course, are retaining 4 of their 5 players, and if you want to say that Akuma Scythes were TFT because they kept their bot lane and you, then I guess it'd be 2.5 ish
Yeah.
because you're not playing obviously. So
Yes.
there's a higher number. Yeah, there's a higher number of players that Katanas have retained from the Asian Invasion squad of old. So I think that they have a better springboard. I also think that Shockpool, aka Coronavirus, has molded into this team very, very well too.
Yeah, so one thing that I really like when I watch Katanas scrim and Katanas play games is that most of the time they're kind of like lemmings. So like if one jumps off a cliff, all of them jump off the same cliff right after. They're very much like synced into each other's minds, going full Papega, but they're always on the same page.
If he feeds, I'm feeding too.
Yeah.
Literally.
It's been true. It's been that way for a long time as
Oh,
well.
that's what happened with the bot lane.
That's why Slothking and I were big fans of Asian Invasion last split. Because they were so in sync a lot of the time, and of course I'm just a big Klexo fanboy, but yeah, I'm really
some sick crap.
yeah, and I'm looking forward to him doing some more of that tomorrow. But yeah, I think right now it is Katanas that are favored, but yeah, I'm really high on all 5 of the players on Scythes, which is the case for Katanas as well. But I'm really excited to see them work together as 5 because I think they're all really, really solid. Definitely competing for best in their role for both the division and the league as a whole, which is awesome.
Agree. I think we have a plethora of talent on both teams.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, I'm really excited for both teams here. I'm really glad that we got you on for that as well because Akuma is a really big a big talking point in this league as they did have a team that won last split. Blades of course not returning right now, but the Akuma brand lives on.
Yes.
Yeah, we took a lot of the great players that we had from last split and then just took them into this new like foundation that they can structure themselves off of, and I think it's been pretty successful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was very happy when Fluke messaged me and asked us to join Akuma. I think that it's been a very pleasant transition, and
changed my life.
I've been very happy to be able to scrim quality teams like Blades, Sabers, and Katanas regularly.
Yeah.
Of course.
And before we take it to our final division, I fully understand that this podcast sounds very Akuma biased. One, because we have their coach on, but also just because Slothking and I are fanboying over them a lot. I want to say that it is biased because we have been following these teams for a long time. 9 of the 10 players were playing last split. Wait, did Shockpool? Yeah, Shockpool played too. He didn't play by the end, but he was on Blades too. So we've seen all of these players in the last split, and we had podcasts over them for quite some time. So that is the reason. If you out there want to talk to us about this stuff, like all these players have as well, feel free to. It's just that we've talked to these guys a lot. But anyway, we can then get over to our final division, which is the division of Rebirth, or the Rebirth Division. The flip flop is from Odyssey. But yeah, we had 4 games there as well. 2 of them were Go Next. We got to see Go Next win against 2 of these teams, and that was one of the first ones as well. We had Raj's Redemption, the unfortunate 0-4 team, play up against Go Next Gaming, which is the fortunate 4-0 team. And it definitely seemed, the way that the standings were in this game, it looked like a pretty typical Go Next game where they just kind of face rolled the other team constantly and ended up winning somehow under their noses anyway. And I have a pretty interesting read on this team. I don't know if they will agree, as typically Tron does not agree with things that I say about him. So I'm not expecting too much from him as far as agreeing with me, but my take on this team is that they do have a lot of these fights, and they aren't actually winning a lot of them. It's very 50-50 on whether or not they win these fights. But it's honestly kind of like a magician's trick where they're doing all these fights in your face and they're like, oh, look at all these fights, you can fight us and all this stuff, and then behind their back they've got B-Way taking all these turrets behind them, they got Bishan taking all the drakes, and it's really weird to watch because you'd think that a team that is this dominant wouldn't take these risky plays, but they do it so consistently and they get stuff out of it every time, whether or not it's winning the fight. They are first to the objectives, they're first to the turrets, they're first to the nexus. And it's really cool to watch, but like as someone who's predicting what team is going to win, it's very stressful. Because Go Next loses these fights so consistently, or inconsistently, I guess. I don't know. It's really weird. That's my take on Go Next as well. It
Smax,
applies for the other game also against
how
OTA
many
Glacials.
splits is it gonna take for you to stop doubting Go Next?
I'm not doubting them. I'm not doubting them at all. I fully understand what they're doing with their macro. It's just I don't know why they're monkeying around with these fights so much. It seems like they could be playing cleaner, but I don't know. I think we just have the G2 of PRL here, where it feels like they're limit testing all the time, and they're still the number one team, and I don't know what to think about it.
Go Next has a lot of really strong individual players. I think pretty highly of Bishan. I've played against him, and I've known him for a while. I'm good friends with Kiwi. I think Kiwi is really strong, probably top 2, top 380 carry in the league. I don't really know a whole lot about Tron and Seawolf. I don't really watch them play very often. I think that they're good role players, but very rarely will they carry the game. And I think that's important. I don't think 5 players need to be carries. And I
Yeah.
think GoNext strikes a perfect balance in that they have strong carries who stand out, and then 2 really strong role players in Tron and Seawolf. And they're a really fun team to watch. Like, very, very fun.
Yeah, and that's been true since last split as well. And it was actually very noticeable as well, where on my top 20 list, I had B-Way, Bishan, and Kiwi on it, very high as well. And then I believe on Plays for Days list, he had both Tron and Seawolf, but he didn't have the other 3. And I think both are very valid because they do very different things. He just had different priorities on what he had as a good player in the league and everything. And it is because of exactly what you're saying, where Tron and Seawolf just do what the team needs for them to do, and they have these other just pop off performers, and it's really cool to watch them do. And they've been doing it for months now, and yeah, they did win with this lineup in the summer split, so that was a while ago. They got third place in the fall split. The highest rated team as well that is returning, as both Akuma Blades and Dawn Revenant are not returning, so these are kind of the defending champions if you put a spin on it that way. A little bit. It's just a
If
little
you
bit.
squint.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not surprised that they are undefeated in this division. I think this is definitely the team to beat here, and no one's done it yet.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly with that.
Yeah, I um I put it differently in my notes. I said that Raj's Redemption, they took the arm wrestle with Go Next, where they fought all the time, and they actually did do a pretty good job of that, but they just did not. They fell in the macro, like I was mentioning. That Go Next just does it super consistently. So I want to give a little bit of a shout out there to Raj's Redemption for stepping up to the fights, but yeah, it was just that's just the toughest opponent, so that's going to happen more often than not. But our next game here is Famous Gaming Snowflakes versus Original, and I believe this is the longest game by a lot that happened that day. Yes, it's longest by at least 10 minutes. And that's just because Original was playing the game. If Original's in the game, it's going to go late.
Yeah, I don't really know what to think about Original. They're really weird to watch because there
Yeah.
are some games where they show up and they play really, really well, and their mid laner seems to be kind of like he's like Schrodinger's mid laner, where he's like simultaneously unbelievably good and also unbelievably bad. I really don't know what to think about him. Trollface is a pretty good weak side player, uh, from what I can gather from watching their games. Uh,
But he didn't do
they
that in this
draft,
game.
yeah, well, they draft pretty well most of the time. I like their drafts, but yeah, just not a very big fan of picking Shen like ever.
I'm
The
okay
champion,
with it if you leave it on an island, but you went Rek'Sai for George De La Jungle, and then you went top lane with it.
I just think that Shen is not good. I think if you want a tank that can actually have a laning phase, I think champion like Poppy is really sleeper right now. I think a lot of teams are really kind of sleeping on Poppy. Her laning
Yep.
phase is incredible.
It would have been good
Um,
against Renekton Elise too.
and you can actually play around it too, which was
Right.
amazing. But it just kind of felt like a very large mid difference. Young mid actually looked like the young mid that he's trying to impersonate.
Yeah,
So I was impressed.
he was really really good in this game. Very very good. And Deimos as well just absolutely popped off. It it's unusual to see Tanzo uh, taking continuous L's in the lane, but it's just because, well, first of all, he also didn't expect Georgia Jungle to play topside to a Shen. I can't blame him for that, honestly. That's just dumb. That's one of the major reasons that they lost this game, is because they focused topside in the early game when Shen was level 6 and you have a Misfortune Leona bot lane. It's the
Yeah,
perfect
that's
storm to go bot, and he goes top.
it kind of seems like George Dilla Jungle had a hard time understanding the win conditions. Uh, Vigar should be able to win that mid matchup on his own, Vigar into Cassiopeia, but it's kind of just for free to gank that lane because
Yeah,
Cassio, if she doesn't have flash up or cleanse, she dies 100% of the time with no counterplay.
right.
She just gets murdered. But playing around Shen, it's kind of a head scratcher. I get that Tonzo is very skilled. I think very highly of Tonzo as a player. He has a track record that kind of speaks for itself, but you don't really need to try and shut down Renekton early. It's
Yeah.
kind of no point. The
It
champion
also
will outscale itself.
it also didn't work. He
Yeah.
flame horizoned the Shen by a lot, and he was up almost 3,000 gold just by himself, and that's after the Rek'Sai just continually camped him. It just, they didn't have a clear game plan, but miraculously the game went almost 42 minutes.
Yeah, Lord knows.
Yeah, if Original's the best at one thing, it's stalling out games, even
They're
if they're
really
losing.
good at dragging teams down to their level and beating them with experience.
Yeah, I don't know. If any team was gonna pick Kale in this meta, it should be them, because the game is inevitably going to 40 minutes, and then your Kale can actually deal damage. So I'm not saying the Kale is good, and she's not good. Don't take that as me saying the Kale is good, but if any team would do it, it'd be Original.
My son is packing his suitcase. He's gonna leave.
All right. Well, we wanna we do wanna wrap this up. We don't want to keep Slothking too long, but we can move on to the next game, which is University of Wyoming versus the Bedides. University of Wyoming, excuse me, only with one win, and it is over the 0-4 team. So, I guess spoilers. Did lose this one. I don't know where my words are going. They lost this one too, and the Bedides finally pick up their first win. This is an example of when Xayah is a good champion to pick.
Yeah, with Rakan, crazy.
Yeah.
Who'd have thought?
And this
You
is
pick it with the
also
champion it was designed to be good with. Nuts.
this is also another example of when picking Senna doesn't make sense because they don't have peel for it. I've beaten that point to death at this point. It doesn't work. And we can see it here. This is actually the exact situation where you want Xayah Rakan because you can just continuously kill this Xayah over, or not Xayah, the Senna over and over. They didn't actually do that. That we can save that for the. Oh wait, it wasn't the next game. There was another game where the Senna just kept getting killed over and over. But yeah, it was a nice bounce back from the Badids here. They put Taylor on his Urgot, which he was actually quite good at in the last split, despite Alarian Gaming Black's kind of demise. They didn't have a really good showing. Um, but Taylor, if one thing was true about Taylor, well, okay, if one thing was true about Taylor, it's that he shouldn't have gone for Zillion top ever. But the other thing is that his Urgot was pretty good, and he played it again
Hey, that
here.
was from a rush draft.
He did it twice.
All right, I'll give you that.
You don't make that mistake twice, let alone once. I don't know, but yeah, I liked the Xayah Rakan here. It made a lot of sense, and Purple Power Pete did the champion really well. I personally have put the most time into Rakan over other champions, and he was really good at it. I'm not even picking him all that much right now because he's not great into the meta champions, but he clearly is very good at the champion, and he made it work quite well with drop when on the Xayah. Fancy that, like Goose is saying, this duo is still pretty good.
I'm mind blown by this. I could have never seen this coming.
Yeah.
Xayah Rakan being strong together as opposed to apart. Insane.
Crazy stuff. But but yeah, the Badids they pick up this win. Actually, excuse me, this was their second win because this was game 3, so they had already won a game against. I'm gonna cheat and look. They won against Element 5, who we didn't get to see play, but we can talk about them at the end because I know Goose had a few things about them, but we didn't get to see them play this week, so I personally don't have too much on them. As our last game of the night was Go Next versus OTA Glacials. Both of these teams were 3-0 coming into this one, so it was the tiebreaker, all things considered, and yeah, it was another one of those games where Go Next out macroed them and they didn't even know.
Oh, this game was so frustrating to watch, actually, because I actually think Axum played really well early on, but he waited until, I believe, 25 minutes to buy an Executioner's Calling into the Fiora matchup.
Yeah.
Had he bought that at any point earlier into the game, this game was actually really winnable because he was dumping on the Fiora early on.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely monstering B-Way. But yeah, it was just kind of tragic to watch Axum slowly lose the 1v1 in the side lanes because he just refused to buy Executioners until it was too late.
Yeah. And
was
Klepto-Bismol was doing
impressed
the
with-
Olaf thing too.
Yeah, I was impressed with Klepto's early game. I thought it was pretty clean into Bishan's Talia. He actually managed to punish Bishan, which a lot of junglers in this league don't really know how to.
Yeah.
I was impressed with that. Atinio and Merc looked good as always until they didn't.
Yep. I would put it that way too. Yeah.
Yeah. Like again, to reiterate my point from earlier, Tron and Seawolf are simultaneously integral to the team's success, but also not super important. Tron did 4th most damage on the team as Rumble, which is it's kind of bad, but at the same time,
it's pretty
he did
laughable.
exactly what was asked of him, and that's what I really admire about Tron. He doesn't try too hard to carry the game, and he does exactly his job, and it's really nice to see a player understand that they can take the back seat.
Yeah. I think that this division has phenomenal top lane talent with B-Way, Axum, and then also Tanzo is in this division
I would
too.
agree.
The top laners in this division are super good. Like you mentioned, even Trollface is really good weak side. Very different type of player there, but still worth mentioning because the top lane matchups here are really close. And B-Way is actually it's crazy. He's known for picking these like bruiser type 1v1 champions into the counter matchup and still winning. Like you can see that they did their research. OTA Glacials, they banned the Irelia even though they picked the Renekton, just because they know that B-Way can still win that matchup. So a lot of credit to B-Way for this game and just for his notoriety in that way. This guy's really really solid and one of the premier reasons why the top laner pool is so good in this division. But yeah, again another example of picking Senna with no peel. Um, I told you guys, it happened way too much. It happens so often. It's crazy that keeps happening.
It's a bit hard to see.
Yeah.
It's rough to
Almost as
watch.
hard as picking Kaisa super often, but I digress. We can we can go past this one. Another nice win from Go Next, and it does push OTA Glacials down to second place, tied with FG Snowflakes. And I guess I'll just go down the list of the standings here. Go Next first, OTA Glacials, FG in second. Original tied with the Badids in fourth place, and then Element 5 tied with University of Wyoming in sixth. Rogers Redemption in eighth place without a win. And first of all, I'm surprised that the Badids were managed to bounce back in the way that they did. A lot of props to them for doing so. They do so against Element 5 and University of Wyoming. And they essentially are the reason that Element 5 and University of Wyoming are in sixth together, because they both took losses to the Badids and their other opponents as well. So nice job by the Badids. They are now on people's radar, I think. They were not before, but
yeah, I mean, in fairness to them, they did lose to OTA Glacials and FG Snowflakes, who, in my opinion, are the 2 and 3
right,
teams in this division.
I would agree.
But again, like you said, they're going to have to beat those teams if they want to actually make playoffs, which I think they can. I think they can definitely take out OTA Glacials. I've not been super impressed with OTA outside of their bot lane. I think Coutinho is very good though.
Yeah,
So I'm excited to see that matchup.
I'm pretty high on Axum particularly, but yeah, apart from that Olaf game, I think Klepto-Bismol's been underwhelming for this team, as we watched them in week 1 as well. Shout out to Nutty for going 2-0 on this team. And honestly, Nutty has been better than Walls. I think Walls was underwhelming, and yeah, good job, Nutty. You made it onto the podcast.
So proud of you.
But yeah, I fully agree. I think that the 1, 2, 3 is Go Next, and then FG Snowflakes, and then OTA Glacials. And I think it's going to be tough for any other team to get into that. But shout out to the Badids for winning 2-0. And do you wanna touch on Element 5 a bit? I haven't seen them play too much, so
yeah, I've known Element 5's players. I don't know the brand, but I've known their players for a while. I used to play with a couple of them in ABL a while back when I was on Schism. For those who don't know, ABL champion, by the way. I think that all of their players are super good individually, but this team, I'm pretty sure, is taking this tournament for fun, which is very much like them. But I think if they decide to put any practice in, this team is a serious dark horse. Fluffy Buns is a very, very good player. Quadra as well is a very strong AD carry.
yeah, I can vouch for Quadra for sure. He's very good.
River Demon used to be a support. He used to go by the name Reniscore, and now he plays under River Demon, which is making fun of their top laner Solex, by the way, in case anyone was wondering. He's good. Probably too good for PRL if he was playing support, but he's playing jungle, so luckily there's a chance for other teams. Yeah, I think just look out for Element 5. They're really talented players, and if they take things seriously, I think that they'll upset a lot of teams.
All right, that's always good to hear. I'm glad that dark horses do exist. I think that's a good topic. I think we should look at the other divisions and I think we touched on it a little bit, but we can go over dark horses. Element 5 will be the one for Rebirth. We can go up the line, I guess, since we are starting with Rebirth. We can go to Ashes. I already said mine, actually. So I guess mine would be Ferocity. Because they're sitting down at the bottom. They're 2-2 tied with TFT. I think that they're gonna be my dark horse there. I don't know if you have a different one, but
I don't think very highly of Ferocity because beat sucks. But if I had to pick one, I mean, currently they're in second place, but X1 Brotherhood to me is a team that didn't stand out week one, and they look better and better as time goes on, and as they, I don't know, play more together and practice, I think this team will get better and better, and I'm looking forward to it. I think they're very good.
yeah. All right. I know Slothking is muted, but yeah, we'll get you in here for the questions if you can, but we'll move up the line here. I actually do have one for the Cinders division. It's very interesting. So Seawolf goes to Virginia Tech, and he tried out for this team, and he didn't make it on to the team. And if they start playing, I think that this team is going to be really good just because of that. Because Seawolf didn't make it onto the team, and while, like you mentioned, Seawolf is more of a chameleon to this team, so he's very form-fitting to that. So maybe he's not the best individual player, so maybe that's why they didn't take him. But purely because of that statement that Seawolf told me, I think that Virginia Tech has a lot of potential. And if they start playing this week, fingers crossed, that's my dark horse here.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think it's either them or Imperial Knights, just because of the cruiser factor.
Yep.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you just said. I think highly of Obelisk, who's a player on that team as well.
Yep. And then it's actually really tough to pick one for Fire. We already mentioned it, how it's very much divided amongst the top four and then the bottom four. But I think if I had to pick one, I already mentioned it before. I think RMU has it in them to maybe break into the top three. I think it's the most likely of those four teams, but I think this one is the hardest to really make a case for, just because of how big the divide is.
Yeah, I think hell is frozen over, and I'm gonna have to pick Famous Gaming. Notoriously, absolutely shit all over Famous Gaming last season. Wasn't a big fan of them, their players, or the management, but I've turned a new leaf as they have. I think Famous Gaming Prodigy is the best of the 2 and 4 teams, and I think they're going, like I said earlier, to decide who does and does not make playoffs this season.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, we only have one segment left. We've got the questions. We've got a few of them here, 3 to be exact. I threw in my question for the dark horse there for fun, but we got the first one here. AKM Klexo, the man, the myth, the legend, has come in and he's asking us to rank each division, and we talked about this a little bit beforehand. I think we all have a pretty clear understanding of what our hierarchy is. So if Slothking wants to weigh in on this, he can, but of course he's got his son right there. We can just talk back and forth. I think that it is. We had. Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. We had Friday and last. I know that much.
Yes.
We had,
as always.
Yeah, and then we had Friday at the bottom. That
then
is
Sunday.
Yeah. Then Sunday, and then Saturday, Thursday.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So to put it in the other words, we have Cinders, Rebirth, Ashes, Fire, and it's week 2 for most divisions, week 3 for Fire division. We could be off, honestly. There could still be teams that surprised us, but I think we made our opinions rather clear, where the Fire division and the Ashes division definitely have the most teams right now that are worth consideration for the playoffs. As Fire has a very clear 4, I think Ashes has a little bit of a mix-up there, and whether or not SP Gambra's X1 Brotherhood, Akuma Katana's, Ferocity, at least for me, and maybe even TFT can get in there. Um, another division with a very big divide between the top half and the bottom half, I would say. And then I think Rebirth is very top heavy with Go Next way above everyone else. Um, and then there's a dip for FG OTA, and then there's another pretty big dip. And then for Friday Division, it's the meme division. We got we, we got the Cinders Division, where essentially I think is the best, and then SBK, and then there's a pretty big gap as far as our perception goes.
I have to say, disclaimer: this doesn't mean that any teams in specifically the Sunday division, which being ranked third, are bad. I think Go Next is like a top 3 team in the tournament.
Yeah.
But it's very, very top heavy. It reminds me a lot of TFT Tempest division last season, where you really only had 2, maybe 3 teams who would actually challenge other teams.
It was 2.
And Tempest. I mean, technically, you could make an argument for Famous, even though they did get absolutely dumpstered by Zephyr. But it's really a 3-horse race, in my opinion.
So I always like to change the question because it says rank each division. I like to do it by competitiveness because I think competitiveness is what people watch for in each division. So I think ranking it by which ones are the most competitive versus, because if you have 3 teams that are just stomping everyone, that's, obviously that's not that great to rank. You put that down because it's so easy to fly through that. So I think it depends on.
It's really a question of like, if the third place team from Fire was put into Group B, would they 14-0?
Yeah, I know you want to watch your show.
And that's probably the case. At least from the first few weeks that we've watched here. If you put Akuma Size or Wolfpack in the Cinders division, they would probably take first. Is really where we're looking at it here. But yeah, that's mostly where I come from that debate as well, and I think that it's pretty similar as far as competitiveness goes. I think you could, if you were really leaning in on that, you could put Rebirth last, and then you could put Cinders above, just because there's a little bit of a closer clump at the top, and it's not just Go Next is going to win it all, but yeah. I think it's still pretty close if you go through that lens. Any final thoughts on that one from Klexo here?
I think we've pretty much covered it.
All right. We've got a little bit of a joke question now from Seawolf. Go next to Seawolf. He asks, how far down the support tier list has Seawolf dropped, and is it 32nd? And the answer to the last bit is no. He was never 32nd, and he isn't now. That is JB Emma. And as far as how far down he's dropped, I have not been impressed by any new support particularly. None of them come to mind as being particularly impressive.
I think it's pretty much the same cast as last season.
Right. We've got well, I guess you could throw Forbidden in there now, because we didn't have him on the list before. So maybe he's fallen 1 place, and it's Forbidden's place now. So I guess that answers the question. So we've got Furious Doctor, we've got Laxon. Those are the, well, I guess it's evened out because Brash is gone. So there you go. It's the same.
I think Seawolf is definitely top 10. I don't know enough about the other supports because it's not a role I really think about very often. I'm more of like mid and jungle type of person, given that I played those 2 roles.
Yeah.
But
I would probably shrink it down to top 6. I think the Seawolf is in there, but top 10 is definitely fair. I would also have to look a little bit more into it as for what the other supports are looking like. I think Merc is pretty good, but he's also not a new player. I also have been impressed by Tick. on SPK Embers, but it's very easy for a new SPK Embers support to impress me.
Yeah,
because it's not
I'd
Yark.
like to see a little bit more out of SB Cambers before I'm willing to put Tick anywhere near a top 10. Yeah, I think Curry is also incredibly strong.
Yeah, I was actually
As a
going
new
to
support.
mention Curry and also Applause. I think they're both quite good.
Yeah, I think Applause is good. I'd like to see more out of Applause. I think Applause is good, but hasn't really been tested all that much as far as bot lane goes.
Right.
I'm excited though, because if Seawolf is outside of top 10, it must be a good year.
That's true. That's definitely a good way to put it. But yeah, I drew a blank on both Curry and Applause. My mistake. They are two new supports that I have been impressed by. So I'm sorry.
I have these players very firmly in the back of my mind.
Yeah, it's been about an hour and a half since we talked about the Fire Division, so you can cut me a little bit of slack there. And then we have another question that's actually very pertinent to that one. Kiwi, go next Kiwi, so Seawolf's lane partner, he asks, who is the best bot lane in Phoenix Rising Academy League? He actually put PRL as a whole, so we can cheat and put we can put Vilas as the best bot laner if we want to from Full Spectrum, but obviously he's talking about Academy.
So I wanted to do this a bit differently. I don't really want to start a flame war and be biased. So I'm going to do this by division personally. You guys can do it another way. I'm going to do it by division. I think for Fire Division, the Thursday, I believe, is Fire. I just know them by the days. I don't know the actual names.
Yep,
I think Indigo and Furious Doctor are the best bot lane. I think a Furious Doctor is insane player. Indigo is top 380 carry in the league with Kiwi. I'm not sure who the third one is yet. I'd like to say Triple Lift if he played other champions in Vayne.
I actually have one for that, but I'll wait.
I think Essentia Storm's bot lane is very strong. I would love to see, and this is like me playing, armchair manager, Cruiser and Laxon in the lane would be kind of nice. I'm just gonna say would be kind of nice. And then June and Forbidden are really good, but I will have to give it to Hims and Tick. I think they've looked a lot better. And then obviously, Kiwi and Seawolf. Kiwi is, I worship the ground he walks on.
Yeah, he's that bot is very, very good.
It's my favorite Lowe's employee. What can I say?
There's a reason they asked that question. Let's just say they wanted some self gratification there. I'm actually gonna go ahead and open it up a little bit more. I'm gonna say my top 2 for each division. Because I don't want to make the distinction quite yet because there's a lot of things that could go either way, and a lot of these bot lanes haven't played against each other yet. So I'll open it out by agreeing that Indigo and Furious Doctor are in the top 2 for Fire, probably first. I'll just go ahead and say they're first. And second, I'm gonna put Caliburn and Curry. Yep, Caliburn's quite good. And we already talked about Curry as being one of the top supports as well. I'm very impressed with their bot lane. Caliburn also is the drafter for that team too, so he's gets a little special shout out for that too. Then for the Cinders division, we've got I'm also gonna put Essentia Storm's bot lane in there, and I'm gonna cheat and say Cruiser as well and Girlfriend Nevalera, but mostly just Cruiser. No disrespect to Girlfriend, but
it's actually just the Cruiser show. And like I said, Laxon and Cruiser, message me tea time. I can make it happen.
Let's do it. I am a big Cruiser fanboy. Absolutely. And then for Group C, it's the same as yours. I've got the Akuma Katana's bot lane and SPK Amber's bot lane, June Forbidden, and Hims Tick. I don't think there's that much competition in that division either for that spot. And then for Group D, I'm also going to do Kiwi Seawolf and then Mercatinho. And I don't think that's close either. So there we have that. I see Slothking is messing with his son. Do you have any insight here on what the best bot lane in PRL is?
I really haven't put like a lot of thought into the bot lanes too much, but when you're going just based on this is why I was muted the
Yeah,
whole
it's
time.
okay. It's fine.
Just based off of what I already know and what we've still seen in this split, you can't go wrong with Indigo and Furious Doctor.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that if I had to pick a best bot lane, it would be them, and then it would be followed by Kiwi Seawolf. Those would be my top two. Um, but I'm looking forward to seeing if the other lanes that I mentioned can surprise me. But again, that's mostly based off of the last split as well, because they are retained. They are the only bot lanes that have retained themselves, I believe, uh, as the only returning players. Oh no, actually, Atinio and Merc did too. But I think that they would be underneath. But in any case, yeah, that's our opinions on the bot lanes of Phoenix Rising Academy League. And with that, I believe that is all we've got for you guys today. Almost exactly 2 hours, so a third of what it used to be. You guys are welcome for that. Uh, I hope you all enjoyed. It's been an honor having Goose on here with us this time as well. If you have any shout outs you want to give here at the end of the video, by all means.
I mean, shout outs to Akuma, shout outs to Miko, ex Fluke, for picking us up. All of my players, shout outs to them. They're great. I also think that it's important for anyone who watches this podcast, put in general chat or plays podcast questions that you want to see me come back, because everyone, I know they want to see me more. Yeah, just thanks for having me on, guys. It's been fun. I
Yeah.
love talking about these teams.
I do too, and I'm sad to see that the podcast is so much shorter than it used to be, but also I'm pretty happy because I think people will get more out of it this time, and maybe not skip to their own division. It's okay if you do, by the way. It's totally fine and acceptable if you do. There are 32 teams in our league, so that's entirely fine. But yeah, definitely please send us your questions and hot takes and discussion points. We only had 3 of them today. And disclaimer, if it's a tier list, we probably won't do it until later in the split because we want to gather more information. So that's our disclaimer on the tier list questions. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. Any quick shout outs you want to give, Slothking?
Yeah, sorry guys. I'm real sorry that my son wanted to watch Muppet Babies. So
I do too.
yeah, I mean, I was watching while you were talking. Sorry.
I can't blame you.
Um,
That show's good.
no, just sorry I didn't get to really comment on the last division. But I mean, I agree with a lot. We talk a lot between the three of us, between the two of us, about this stuff on a daily basis. So we all have similar situations and thoughts.
Yeah.
Other than
Uh,
that, I'm happy to see the podcast go back up and
yes.
really excited for the rest of the split.
That's actually a good segue because if you have differing opinions from us, firstly, tell us in the comments of the video or in the Discord channel. We have the discussion channel for you. We're also probably going to rename it to SmaxTalk instead of Plays, as the goat himself, Plays for Days, has retired from the podcast.
Good old
But
man.
yeah, it also, as we don't have Plays as a constant host, we are looking for guests. As we had Goose on today, phenomenal guest. We are looking to diversify that cast as well. So if you are interested in joining us for an episode of the podcast, feel free to tell us, and we will definitely put you up for consideration. I want to give a quick shout out to Laxon because he is going to be our guest already. We already signed him up, and he's already interested in being on the show. So he will likely be our next guest. But with that, thank you so much, Goose and Slothking, for coming on the show with me. It was a great time. And thank you all again for listening. It was a great time with you as well. I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say about our opinions, and I'm looking forward to especially the teams that we have low opinions of to one, prove us wrong if you can, and two, tell us that we are idiots. Please do that.
Please.
Please,
I'm
please.
looking forward to being DM'd that I'm an idiot. Please.
Yes. We love that so much. I'm not actually kidding at all. Please do tell us. I already had Griffin today on Lost Collective Gladiators tell me that I was an idiot for not predicting his team to win against Wolfpack. I'm already getting that, so please do that. That's amazing. But yeah, send us your questions, hot takes, discussions in the Discord channel for our next episode. It will be over week 3. Probably a little bit less of week 3 from Fire because we dipped into that a little bit this one, but yeah, that'll be it from us on the SmaxTalk Podcast. Thanks again so much for watching. Be sure to give us a like and a subscribe if you want to see some more. But we also do the announcements in the text channel as well, so you can catch us there if you're in the Discord. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see y'all next time on the SmaxTalk Podcast.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.